Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. We've got quite a show in store for you. I'm not sure if you can say show on Zoom, but quite a conversation to have with you. So we'll give it a couple minutes while people file in, and we'll get started in just a moment here. And you'll have to look at our faces in the meantime. We're going to smile at you. We're glad you're here. When we do get started, I'll just let everybody know if you've got questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll be moderating a Q&A for those of you that have done these before with us. You know that's how we work. But if you haven't, feel free to put questions in the chat, and I'll pitch them to our panelists as we get going. So we'll give people maybe one more minute to file on in. I'm pretending this is a physical theater. It helps me mentally to pretend that that's the situation. All right. Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and get started with our intro. I will first of all welcome you all and thank you for coming, joining us for this presentation today. I'm Jeff Green, the CEO of the Santa Barbara City College Foundation. And with me is some of the fabulous leadership of our community's college. Many faces you may know, others you may not, so you're going to get to meet some folks today. And we're here to talk about really what's exciting for all of us at the moment. Exciting and challenging, to be sure. But that is the fact that we've returned to in-person learning as of this fall. So we're now over a month into our new semester. We are continuing to work out what this all means on a day-to-day basis. I'm sure some of you have been following that. But I can't be more proud of and happy with the leadership and what they've taken on and grappled with. And where I sit, I do have something of a front row seat to those challenges as they come up. And some of the people that have been key to really solving those for us are here with us today. So we're going to hear directly from them. Before I introduce all of our panelists, I want to say this is something we at the SBCC Foundation started doing in spring of 2020 at the onset of the pandemic. We thought of ways that we could connect our community, both our college community and our broader regional community, to the college, whether it's to talk through an issue, whether it's to advertise a new idea or program, whether it's to showcase something that happens on campus that people may not have familiarity with. And of course, on a campus of our size and complexity, there's a lot that if you're not in that classroom or you don't know that person, you may not realize all the great work that happens. You know it's great because everybody says it's great, but you may not know all the details. So it's proven to be a great tool for us, a really useful one. I will say these campus conversations are now posted, they're recorded, and this is being recorded. They are posted on our website at sbccfoundation.org. I want to thank my colleagues that helped put these together, Raisa Smorrell, our Chief Development Officer in particular, and Jennifer LeMay, our Director of Marketing and Communications. So we are going to launch in with our conversation, and I'm going to give you a brief introduction, and then I will hand it off. But first, you're going to hear from our, I can still say brand new, I think, Dr. Mourinho, our brand new interim superintendent president, a few weeks in, Dr. Kindred Murillo. She most recently retired from the Southwestern Community College, and some of you know Southwestern. And prior to that, I was at Lake Tahoe and has a lot of experience in our world and our work around the state of California, and we are very happy to welcome her to SBCC. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Kathy Scott. Dr. Kathy Scott, another recent retiree of multiple colleges in our system, and she agreed to come back for the role of interim executive vice president, our head academic officer at the college. She's worked with, and some of you know her from her work at Ventura and Pasadena, and most recently Long Beach. Also delighted to have Dr. Scott with us. Then we'll hear from Dr. Dean Nevins. Dean probably has the longest tenure of anyone here. He has served in multiple roles with the college, but most recently and currently, he's the executive director of IT, or information technology, here at SBCC. And he can share a perspective with deep roots in the college, as well as what it takes to do the technical side of all of this pivoting and repivoting and rethinking. And did I mention repivoting? And finally, last but not least, we have with us Dr. Anselmo Villanueva, who is the first executive director of diversity, equity, and inclusion for Santa Barbara City College. He joined us earlier this year in our all remote environment, and I'm happy to say he's right here in town with us now. He is a native of Santa Barbara, so he knows some things about this place. But we're really happy to have Dr. Villanueva back after many years doing this work in all manner of educational institutions. So with that as introduction, I'm very happy to hand it over to Dr. Kindred Murillo, our interim superintendent president. And we have some slides to share, so we'll bring those up as soon as you're ready.
Okay, thanks, Jeff, and I'm glad to be here. I'm really appreciative of this idea of the webinars and what we need reaching out to our community. So you can actually move to the next slide. So I've been using the term top of mind right now because honestly, there's a lot of things floating through the air with all the complexity that we've been through with COVID, with students, enrollment, everything that's been going on. And first, I really want to talk about my favorite subject, which is students. Many people that work in the California community colleges or in higher education, we're here because of students. And it's so fun to be at the sites right now and inspiring to see and interact with our students. I've had some great times. And in fact, the channels actually got me to do like one line of karaoke, which I have never done in my 66 years. So it was quite fun. And they just cajoled me and got me to do it. So that's how amazing our students are. They just are wonderful. So our job is to support our students and to help them achieve in our work. It really is our work at community colleges. And I took this picture last night at the SBCC Foundation President's Circle, and Sahari Gastelum gave a speech that really started the little tears coming down the face when she talked about being a role model for her siblings and why she's going to school and how the SBCC Foundation promise has helped her realize her dreams. She was an amazing example of so many of our students at the Santa Barbara, at the WAVE, and the SHOT centers. And I think it's so important right now to recognize the resilience of these students. Next slide. So with that, really trying, I've been here now, I think 4 weeks. It's gone so fast, I don't even know what to say anymore. The safety and well-being of our students, our faculty, our staff, our leaders, and our community at Santa Barbara City College. That has to be front and center for us right now with the implementation of a vaccination mandate and the continued roller coaster we go through with how exposures happen. The other thing that's really on top of my mind is moving toward our future. We have a vision and a mission we want to realize. And in order to do that, we need to move from crisis mode, which has been pretty much COVID, the last 20 months, to really thoughtful planning. How are we moving forward? How are we going to take what we learned in COVID and apply it to the future at Santa Barbara City College? That's really important for us. One of the things we're doing right at this moment is we are surveying our students. What worked for you this last 20 months and what didn't work for you? How can we better serve you as a college? And we're really looking forward to the results of this and to continuing to talk with our students and our community about how Santa Barbara City College moves forward. We are an amazing college. We have outstanding faculty and staff. And how do we leverage the amazing history? And I think this is something that gets lost sometimes. There's a history at Santa Barbara City College of doing incredible work. And we have to leverage that history and move our college into the future. And that's one of the things I really want to help with this next few years. So back to top of mind, the big important issue is tomorrow we are implementing a vaccine mandate. And I say that really slowly because it's one of the tools that is most effective in dealing with this transmission of COVID. So we use the 4 tools that are available to us that have been proven to work: masks, vaccines, air filtration, and contact tracing. When you use all of those together, they work. And so that's what we're doing. Next slide. So what I want to express to everybody today, and I think these are really important bullets that I want to go through. Normally, I wouldn't spend this much time on like very detailed items. And I want to make sure everyone understands what we're going to be doing. So tomorrow, October 1st, students, faculty, and staff must be fully vaccinated to enter a college building or attend in-person classes. Now, it's key here: a college building or attend in-person classes. Often I hear people get this confused with, I have to have a vaccination to be on the college sites. So just remember, enter a college building or attend in-person classes, okay? The other piece is that if you don't have a vaccination, you can apply for an exemption. And if you get that exemption, you must also provide a negative COVID-19 test result weekly and wear an N95 mask at all times when you're in buildings. Next slide. So members of the public attending indoor events or meetings at a campus facility must also provide proof of vaccination or a negative COVID-19 test result within the prior 72 hours. So a little bit different twist on sort of the public attending indoor events or meetings. Monitored daily are the wristband distribution and our campus check-ins. So I think it's really important. We all walk on campus or drive on campus, and we know we got to run, get to that table, get our wristband, and do our check-in. So we've been doing that via Healthy Roster and then physically going to our tables to check in. Next slide. Well, I ran over to Kathy's slide, so I don't have to go any further. So with that, I know there'll be questions when we get to the to some of the Q&A. And I felt it was really important to go over those very specific details so people know what to expect starting tomorrow. And we are here as administration to support our faculty and staff as we implement this vaccine mandate. We will be walking around the college sites. We will be helping to monitor buildings to ensure that everything goes smoothly. So thank you for letting me be here today. I've so appreciated it, and sorry if I ran over my time.
No worries, Dr. Mourinho. Thank you. So I'll hand it off to Dr. Kathy Scott.
Thank you, Jeff. Of course, my dog has decided to bark, but I'll try to prevent that from happening again. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. And I had the shortest retirement, perhaps of many people. I made it all of 4 days. And then when I got the call about Santa Barbara, there was no way I wasn't going to take a chance to come here. So I'm just really, really pleased to have this opportunity and to be working with everyone on campus. I oversee the educational programs, which is both the programs and the services that help our students to complete their goals. And we are focused, as always, whether we're in a pandemic or not, we are focused on our mission and our vision, where we transform lives, we work together to accomplish that, and we are dedicated to the success of each student whether they are here for a degree, a certificate, a transfer, to advance their career, whatever they are here for, we are here to support them to achieve that goal. We are committed to fostering an equitable, inclusive, respectful, participatory, and supportive community for our students. This semester is, we're getting a little bit more online, or more in person each semester. So that right now we're about a third of our classes are hybrid or in person. And it's been wonderful to see our students back. We have more students back on campus than at any point since March of 2020, and that number will continue to increase for spring. Student and academic services have reopened for a portion of their time in person, at the same time as they're providing services to students who have really learned to enjoy those services online. But we have our library open, the tutoring area, financial aid, admissions and records, Veterans Center, the Well, which helps students with wellness, our Center for Equity and Social Justice. I cannot begin to list all of the services and programs that are open, but we're there for our students, and it's been fabulous to see them. We have both our Wake and Shot campuses are open and thriving. Faculty and staff are serving a very diverse population of students who are here for a wide variety of classes. Everything from our high school diploma program to ESL, to construction, to the arts. So they are both open. Our healthcare programs are back at the clinical sites this semester. And as you may or may not be aware, it's been very difficult for our students to get in to complete those requirements ever since March of 2020. But we are back in to the cottage hospital locations and hospitals in Lompoc. Our nursing home facilities have reopened to us and our students so that our students can complete their clinical hours there. Athletics has begun again with competition. And we have 20 sports at our college, and this semester we are in competition in football, men's and women's soccer, women's polo, water polo, women's volleyball, men's and women's cross country, women's golf, and as of tomorrow, men and women's basketball. We have over 400 student athletes, all full-time, and 96% of whom are vaccinated. And our theater has reopened. So we're excited. I got a chance to go to the theater for the first time here, and it was just fabulous. We're also using innovation and technology to enhance teaching and learning. Students are learning how to do some of their labs online. In many cases, we're rotating students in to do their experiments in the actual labs. We have many in-person labs and then the lectures online, which seems to work quite well for many students. Some of our students have the option of being at home or coming to class. That's particularly true in some of our non-credit classes. We've implemented all different kinds of technology to make sure that our students with disabilities have complete access to our classes. Almost all of our classes now are on Canvas, which is our learning management system, and it supports all of our classes, whether they're online or face-to-face. So students can access records from the class and things that they weren't able to do before the pandemic as easily. We have ongoing faculty training to try to continue to improve our online class efforts, and of critical importance is that we're focused on ensuring inclusive pedagogy, welcoming classes, whether they're online or on campus. All right, next slide, please. Thank you. I put together a little slide of some photos to show you what's happening. Here's our LRC and library, which is reopened, as I said. We have new turf on the football field, which looks fabulous. That third one on the right, that's one of our students signing in to get an appointment to go into the Student Services building. Down on the left, these two beautiful women, they are a student worker and the lead over our Well, which is a Chancellor's Office award-winning program. And then you see in that next slide, the students at the check-in stations getting their wristband. And then I just had to throw some art in there. So there's some of the art from our seniors program at the Wake Center. Next slide, please. And areas of focus and challenges for this semester. Our enrollment remains a bit of a challenge, as it does for most of the colleges in our system. We are down right now about 5% in enrollment from last fall, and we have a current head count of about 12,300 students. We are committed to ensuring the success of all students, but we do know that online instruction has not worked as well for some groups of students as it has for others. We have gaps for some student groups, students of color in particular, and we need to help our students, regardless of the modality, with their success and their retention. It is incumbent on us to do that, and it is our responsibility. We've got discussions and work happening all over campus to do more for our students in what continues to be a challenging time. This semester, our class sizes are about 65% of what they typically are, to give more room for students and faculty to feel more comfortable in the classes. And we are currently conducting a student survey to gauge our students' needs for spring and beyond. We want to see also what areas they're struggling with to help us with the planning that Dr. Mourinho was talking about. But we do anticipate that our on-campus offerings will be significantly higher for spring, but our schedule isn't quite done, so we don't have the exact numbers yet, but we do know that we want to increase and meet the needs of our students. And in the longer run, we're creating a strategic enrollment management plan, which is something else that Dr. Mourinho sort of touched on. We want to look at how can we best serve our community, how and where can we increase our outreach and our marketing, what programs are in most demand, what do our students say, how can we help our high school students to take more dual enrollment classes and get a head start on college, and how can we partner with our community to serve the needs of our community. And that's it for me. So thank you very much. And I think I turn it over at this point to Dr. Nevins.
Yes, thank you so much, Kathy.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. So I am involved with IT, Information Technology Department, and we provide support for all these other efforts. There's a lot of great work being done by our faculty and staff, and they need support. And one of the things we needed to support was the movement to the online modality. So one of the things we had to do was we provided what's called a virtual desktop. And the virtual desktop is basically a computer in a box, basically, you can connect to and use to do your work. And what's nice about doing that is you can provide a very robust computer for people that may not have the devices that can support all the software that faculty may want to use. We had a virtual desktop environment before the pandemic, but in March of 2020, we had to scale it up very, very quickly to support the entire campus. And that involved people literally taking boxes out of rooms and taking to other parts of the campus and reconfiguring them and setting them up. It was a huge effort by the staff. However, it was very successful. A lot of the software required for students to actually get their education was provided by the college, and it allowed people to have an equitable access to technology, which is very important to the college. We also used a lot of Zoom. You may be familiar with this program. It is ubiquitous at this point. And it wasn't when we first started, but we had to scale that up very, very rapidly. And we even developed new models of assistance and of providing support using Zoom. We called them Zoom rooms. And they were so popular, they were adopted by the rest of the college in other areas like finance, also student finance, to give people personalized assistance online. So it was a very, very effective approach. We then had to issue devices to help people, again, looking with an equity lens at technology. We provided devices to people who didn't have them or who just needed them. And we had, at its peak, 1,200 Chromebooks out for students, along with some high-end Macs and high-end PCs for specialized courses. Like if you're taking a design class that requires a very high-end computer, we actually provide a computer for people to be able to do that effectively online. We supported students and staff through remote support. We had those aforementioned Zoom rooms where people could come in, talk to a live human being, and get helped in real time. Very, very effective, and one of our most popular features. As a matter of fact, it's one of the things we learned from the pandemic was that's a great way to provide support. So we're going to continue those efforts to the best of our ability. We also provided virtual help desk and also training to faculty as well. The FRC did a lot of heavy lifting with training, but the actual day-to-day support was done by our help desk for faculty. When you go to an online environment, of course, that shows that you have a lot of exposure from a security point of view. So we had to ramp up our security efforts to make sure that those students that were studying, the faculty that were doing their jobs, and also the staff that were assisting were protected. And so we did a lot of work protecting the college's infrastructure by hardening the infrastructure, by implementing two-factor authentication, and some other features to help make our environment more safe and secure for our students and staff. And then, of course, one of the key things that we do is we have events. We want to have a community, and communities need events to actually build that sense of community. And so since we're moving online, our events online. We did in-service online, we had an online commencement, and also the board meetings themselves were held online with good public access. So all those things were critical, and then we all spun those things up in the year 2020. So next slide, please. So now that we're moving to more face-to-face instruction, now we're working on supporting all modalities. So we have a lot of our online support still remaining, but we're scaling that appropriately. And at the same time, we're preparing our classrooms for use, because now that we're teaching classes online, those classes themselves need physical support. Someone's got to be in there. And don't forget, over the past year, the technology has been sitting there, and you know what happens to technology when it sits for a year. So we spent a lot of our time upgrading things and making sure all the connections are working. Additionally, people are moving back into their office. So they needed assistance in that physical office reintegration. We needed to provide them computers, make sure they're set up properly, making sure everything is working well. We additionally created a lot of online forms, so that way students in particular could submit those online forms and they could be processed quickly. One of the things that's interesting about online forms that we've learned is that they become much more accessible to students. We even had to be careful during the time we were building those forms, because what would happen is the students were so active and so they liked those forms so much, they would actually find those forms before they were completing and start using them immediately, which was really, really gratifying. We now are processing, we've literally processed thousands of forms. We're now almost 10,000 forms being processed through our online document handling system. Dr. Mourinho mentioned that we have a vaccine requirement. That vaccine requirement requires us to have forms for students to be able to submit their documentation, have someone submit it for them, or apply for an exemption. All those things were automated and built by our IT department. And then, of course, we continue to have remote events, and we also are now supporting live events, which is very exciting. We're really happy to be doing that. So that's what's been going on at IT. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Nevins. So certainly not least, fourth in the lineup, Dr. Anselmo Villanueva.
Thank you, Jeff, for that nice introduction. I'll get to these slides in a minute. I have some talking points that I want to speak to everyone about. But also, I just wanted to say that Jeff let everyone know that I was born and raised here in Santa Barbara, but I am also a graduate of San Marcos High School, and I did attend Santa Barbara City College back in the day before transferring on to UCLA. So I have a real fondness for this campus and a real direct tie to it. And it's just great to be back here again. Some of the things have been mentioned already, but Jeff asked that I take a look at what's been happening during the pandemic through kind of an equity lens. And as Dr. Scott said, there's been certainly some specific populations that were disproportionately impacted, including students of color, but especially Black and Latino students. In fact, to the degree that several of those students actually left during the pandemic, and hopefully those students or others will come back now that we are in person. And one of the reasons for that we're finding is that, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, is that in many minority populations, communities of color, it's a very relational, in-person kind of a culture. And so when we moved online, that piece was gone. Online works for a lot of people, but for a lot of diverse populations, it certainly does not work. And so I think that is one of the main reasons. The other part, one of my staff members said that, we've been, over the years, Santa Barbara City College has been trying to develop this sense of belonging. And she put it in a pretty bold statement to me, and I've not forgotten it. She said, we went from belonging to loneliness, and especially loneliness in those populations that I'm talking about. people feeling isolated, in the Latino and Black community especially. And oftentimes as a result, they say, well, I need to move on. This is just not working for me. I'm talking right now in terms of the pandemic. The other two pieces that face many college students, and Santa Barbara City College is not exempt from it, is we have many students facing food insecurity as well as housing insecurity. Food insecurity meaning they just do not have enough to eat, and housing insecurity meaning that they don't have an adequate, consistent place to live. Oftentimes you find them with the term couch surfing, going from friend to friend, relative to relative. And so that's not a stable environment for them to be students. The last part, I think, in terms of the pandemic was just, again, kind of this overall concept of access. Even though Chromebooks and hotspots and those kinds of things were available, like I said earlier, that does not work for everyone, even though they're available. And in one of the more recent board meetings, it was like President Mourinho was saying about Sarai, the speech that she gave. There was a very compelling speech by a young Latino student who was just talking about how difficult it has been for the last 20 months during the pandemic to maintain being a student. Where he lives, there's no place to study, there's no quiet place. And at the time, during the pandemic, a lot of our buildings were not available. So it's really good to see that things are opening up so that we can now have students who are used to being in person here on campus. So I kind of painted a bleak picture right there. However, like any storm, there's lots of rainbows behind those clouds. And one in particular, I think, is what Dr. Scott, out of Dr. Scott's office, that survey that she has been talking about, that we will find out from the results of that survey what will work for students, what didn't work, and really take those things that work for the students and really maximize those opportunities and implement things that they are telling us what really worked for them during the pandemic, so we can make sure that as we continue with some hybrid classes and online courses, that will really work. We're also forming or revitalizing many student groups as well as faculty groups. It goes back to that sense of belonging. It's kind of like a student, especially from diverse backgrounds. They'll say, what is there for me besides the curriculum and the courses and the degrees? What does Santa Barbara City College offer for me? Not everyone's going into athletics, not everyone's going into these other kinds of extracurricular activities. And so we're looking at setting up different student groups as well as staff and faculty groups to provide that sense of unity and belonging here on campus. Also with Dr. Scott and others, with our HR department, we're looking at ways of improving our recruitment and retention of a diverse student body. Right now, if you look at the local school districts, Carpinteria and Santa Barbara Unified in particular, there are students there that I believe, hopefully, will be able to come here to Santa Barbara City College. Same thing is with students. We're talking about, increasing the diverse pool of faculty hires as well as other classified as well as administrative staff. So again, with people from different diverse backgrounds on campus, it will invite and support students who are from those same backgrounds. Okay, the slides. The first one that you see, we have a really great set of equity centers. That's what I refer them to. Previously, they were located on the West Campus, where maybe some of you were last night at that function. And over the summer, they moved to a new space right next to the cafeteria, kind of in the center of the campus, and it's newly painted, newly decorated. It's just a great space. And so you'll see here the Center for Equity and Social Justice, and that one student here is walking in, and a student employee is directing him to something there. These slides were taken during the open house. Next slide. Here is the Basic Needs Center, which is also operated out of the Equity Center. You'll see it's a full complement dry goods as well as some produce. And in the back there behind that big red shelf, you'll see, or not, you can't see it, but it's actually a cold case with eggs and milk and so on. And students are allowed to come in and select items to take home with them. But to be honest here, it's not just students. There are also employees who've come in to partake of this food distribution. And I failed to mention earlier that during the pandemic, we did on the West Campus, we had a huge food distribution situation where we were able to give away food boxes. It was a drive-through kind of a thing where people drove up and were able to get a whole box full of groceries and other kinds of dry goods. On the right, the staff person who manages the Basic Needs Center, that's Alondra. And she's been there doing a great job setting up the new space. And in the back, you'll see actually Dr. Benjamin. It was the open house. That is an empty room right now, but we're going to fill it with clothes and other toiletries for students to also utilize. Next slide. Again, this is part of the Basic Needs Center, a couple staff members, student staff members there. You see Randy on the left, and then you see Juanito there in his chair. And we have another person right there just kind of displaying what it looks like. If you've not seen it, it's just a beautiful space, the Basic Needs Center. It's not dingy, it's bright, it's just, and it's always well stocked. Next slide. Again, there's that cold case there on the right and some students showing again what some of the sundry materials that or supplies that are offered there. Next slide. This is the Emoji Center back on the one of the centers by the cafeteria. Emoji is a program that is offered throughout the state community college system and high schools actually that encourage and support Black students especially, but any students who support the mission of Emoji, providing support and retention programs for those students. And let me see, I don't see the staff person there. Next slide, please. There on the left, you'll see again some students meeting during the open house. Some of these students do not have the face mask on because there was a lot of food and drink there. And at the time, it was okay to remove your face mask to partake in the beverages and snacks that were offered during the open house. Next slide. I think that's it, right? A couple ending things here. The other part that we're working on out of our office is to reconnect with the Chumash community. There's a long history, like Dr. Mourinho was saying, there's a long history here of City College that we want to capitalize on, including connection with the Chumash community. So we're looking at doing some things with them. Because of the Promise program through the foundation, we're seeing an increase of students coming back due to that. And it was really great that the foundation made that guideline that you can come back, no questions asked. And so I think that we are seeing the fruits of that particular initiative. And lastly, I just want to say in compliments to Dr. Murillo that I've been in several meetings with her, especially in the cabinet, and she will start off the meeting that to focus that we are student-centered and that we do have a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think under her leadership, the things that I talked about that were not so good happening during the pandemic, I expect them to really turn around, hopefully sooner than later. But we have, like all three of the other presenters talked about, we have maximized almost like an army to make sure that we have things in place to serve students and that they feel safe and productive here during their time on campus.
Great. Thank you so much, Anselmo. And thank you to all of you, to Dr. Maria, Dr. Scott, Dr. Nevins, Dr. Villanueva. A lot of doctors in the house. This must be an academic institution. So I have a few questions. I want to invite our attendees, the folks online here. If you've got questions, go ahead and throw those into the chat. I got a couple just to start us off, and I'm going to make some guesses here based in part on evidence of talking to people in the community. But one reaction to what folks may have just heard is a question around enrollment. Certainly, it made the news nationally that community colleges suffered a downturn in enrollment of, on average 10%. People that have followed Santa Barbara City College know that we're now in a full decade of ongoing enrollment decreases, and there's lots of factors, of course, that go into that. We talk about, where's the bottom, where's the stable point, how many folks do we bring back? And when we get asked on the foundation side about the promise, for example, we say, between fall of 19, where we had 1,700 promise students, to spring of 21, we dropped all the way down to 1,100, so a 35% decline. But with this fall, we're back up over 1,500. So there's a reason to hope people are coming back. But what does that look like, big picture, for SBCC? What is our sense of is there a right size? Are there things that we immediately can do to stabilize enrollment or grow enrollment? I know it's a constant conversation. I just wonder if people in the community who don't follow it moment by moment might want to hear a little bit about sort of how we see that and where we sit in the context of our longer history. And I can pick on anyone in particular, but I'll let you.
I'll start, and then maybe Dr. Scott can talk a little bit about that. I think, having served around the state of California in many different colleges, the one thing that I would remind everybody is, for a community that has a population our size, Santa Barbara City College is pretty highly enrolled. So I think you have to look at the the idea of what population do you serve and how much are you getting in the way of capture from your high schools. And I do want to note, Santa Barbara City College has one of the highest capture rates from the high schools that I've seen in community college, which is amazing. So I want to point that out as a really strength. I think right sizing, you have to think a lot about factors and where you bring students from. Are you bringing students into the college? Are you serving your local community well? And one of the things I know I want to focus on this next year is to really make sure that we are touching every student in our community that needs us. And that's critical. I also believe that bringing students to your college is important because of globalization, and we want to be a global institution. So there's that piece of having people come from other communities and from other places. And first, we should be serving our students and our community really well. So I would say that to me is extremely important, especially around the area of dual enrollment. And how do we make sure that we are touching those students in our high schools?
Thank you. Dr. Scott?
Sure, I can add a little bit. I agree with Dr. Mourinho about dual enrollment. I think that's one of the best strategies that we can do. It's an equity strategy. It helps a lot of students be able to finish high school and also have their first year of college done. Maybe come in as a second year student and transfer more quickly. And I feel that and I know there are a lot of people out in the community that could still benefit from what Santa Barbara City College has to offer. There are students out there who don't have a high school diploma, who may be in low-end, low-paying jobs where they could come and have short-term training with us, get industry certifications, help them get a better paying job. And we, as I try to say in my part, we do want to, work and partner with the community, work with community organizations. How can we reach out more effectively to the community to let them know what we have to offer? We still are going to be the best game in town in terms of the 2 years and the promise. And the associate degrees for transfer, which are the ones that have the automatic entry into the CSU, those are still really, really popular and getting more and more popular by the day. So a lot of students like those and then transfer quite easily. It doesn't necessarily have to be to a CSU. They can, that they can transfer those courses over to a UC as well. And we also are looking at making sure that our students, when they're here, they feel really engaged, and that our curriculum is inclusive of our students' backgrounds and and their lives, and that our curriculum is respectful of our students' backgrounds. So all those things are important in terms of retaining our students, making them feel welcome, included, as part of our community, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Villanueva, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, just one little, again, Dr. Murillo mentioned a little bit, the part about international students. I don't know if it's true here, but I was kind of tracking it on the national level. And I know during the pandemic, because of the ban on international travel, certain countries weren't allowed to come in. That just scared off a lot of people. So I'm hoping that those powers that be realize the damage that did, and that we can open up our airlines, and we can open up our airports again to all travelers from different countries. And I would predict that when that happens, we will see an increase in the amount of students from other countries coming to Santa Barbara City College.
Thank you all for that. I'll add a contextual comment I was going to do at the beginning. One of the things that I find our community often doesn't, you have to look at that deeper history of enrollment, and we had a peak enrollment of over 20,000 headcount back in the wake of the Great Recession. And so when we talk about declining enrollment, we're comparing it to what had been a massive spike in enrollment. So, what you're comparing to, you have to go to a certain point in time to talk about advertising. So I appreciate your comments about what might be the right size going forward, right strategy for the college. Dr. Mayo, did you want to add to that?
Yes, and yes, thank you. And I do want to build on that, because I think the other piece, we knew this was coming, is the decline in high school graduates. There was a report put out, they get put out every year, and they very clearly noted to us in community colleges that we were going to see a decline in enrollment, I believe, starting in 2018 through 2023, and then it will gradually move back up toward 2027. So that's another piece of evidence and trends that we have to be thoughtful about. And I also want to say that what Dr. Scott noted is there's a lot of people in our community, and I just heard a story. It was such a great story about what happened to a local community member who had an injury. They couldn't do the job they've been doing for a long time anymore, and they came back to Santa Barbara City College and got into a whole new vocation. That's what we're for. So I just have to share that. That just was one of those, yes, oh good.
Thank you. That's a constant reminder. I think we all need to remember that community colleges are one of the brilliant pieces of design. We serve those folks coming straight out of high school, but we also serve people every age group, every career, every place in life, and it's just a really accessible, wonderful, flexible institution in that way. So thank you for that. I want to now go back to something. When you were sharing a bit about the Basic Needs Center, this is something that's new, or at least under that title, to folks. But the concept is new, I know, to many people in the community who may have been familiar with community colleges as these, efficient education machines, and that's what we do. And it's all about the classroom. It's about the education, and they don't realize some of the transitions of the last generation that have been necessitated for community colleges to step up in ways that they hadn't previously. Things like referral services, broader social service and support functions, and of course the Basic Needs Center. So can you maybe comment a little bit more about what we're responding to as we build that infrastructure into our colleges? Because we're not alone here, of course.
That's correct. And I don't think, as you said, I don't think we're alone in that. Many community-based organizations are looking at ways to provide those kinds of services. So we also make lots of referrals to students at Santa Barbara City College to community services, because we cannot do it all. And it's correct that we are an educational institution, but we want to be able to provide those necessities so that the student, remove those obstacles so the student can really function as a student. I have a strong background in K-12, and when the free lunch programs first came out, there was a lot of resistance. And I always said, you can't teach a child anything if they're hungry. The same thing if you're an adult, or you're an adult student. If you are hungry or you are cold no matter how good you are, you're not going to be as a functional student as someone else who has those basic needs taken care of. So we're doing what we can to support that. The other thing I forgot to mention, Alondra told me to make sure to say this, is that a lot of the fresh produce in the Basic Needs Center actually comes from the gardens next to it in the Santa Barbara City College garden plots there. So,
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I hear a lot in the community when we talk about what we're doing. You know, usually people are first confused and impressed,
yeah.
and of course we tie this back to the notion that we accept the top 100% of applicants. We meet students where they're at, and
Well,
wherever you're at, we're trying to make sure that we can help you get there. So,
well, even the terminology, when you talk to people who are not familiar with it, when you talk about food insecurity or housing insecurity, they go, what are you talking about? Because for many people, it's not an issue. But for a lot of people who we would think would not be an issue, it is, especially college students of all ages.
all right, well, thank you for that. We'll definitely, I'm sure in the future we'll have conversations like
Yeah.
this just on those as we grow this.
Well, Jeff, you've been to my office and some of your staff, you know that I always have snacks here, and it's true. People, I'm used to having students come by my office and grabbing snacks, and out of the corner of my eye in another office I was managing, I would see them stuff more snacks into their backpack. And so we really, in my office, we upped the kinds of snack, went from snacks to kind of mini meals actually, you know, and it's just the way it is today.
Absolutely. Well, I know we're getting close to our 5 o'clock hour. I guess the third and final question, and I'm going to make sure there's nothing else coming at us from our attendees here, would be about the the adaptations to the COVID environment. You know, we all remember just a few weeks ago, well, a couple of months ago now, it's all a blur, it's COVID time. I was at an event today, a lunchtime event for our state of the county that we gather annually, and Dr. Peter Rupert from the UCSB Economic Forecast Project was sort of talking about public sentiment around, you know, optimism, pessimism, how are people feeling about the future, and that is of course measured by pollsters. And there was this incredible burst of optimism midsummer as we got to June. Okay, we can see light at the end of the tunnel. We're heading out of it, and of course then Delta variant and a whole change in the dynamic with the public health situation. And I don't have to explain to anybody how difficult that is to manage and try to pivot and figure out what's the right response and how long before you change your response. As we look ahead, you know, we've got 30% roughly, I think Dr. Scott said about a third of courses back in person. We're looking to increase from spring. We've got our protocols that we're rolling out, of vaccine mandates starting tomorrow. Now, if all this, let's about 2 years from now, if all this passes and we get back to whatever our new normal is, we're not in a pandemic-driven decision-making environment. Well, there's a lot of folks saying, well, we're never going to go back to March of 20. That's not going to be what the future looks like. Can you maybe in closing remarks, if I ask each of you just sort of to give your vision of what's going to change in that balance likely? And of course, I'm asking you to predict the future, and I will put the caveat on that. I'm not really asking anyone to tell what's happening in 2 years. We all have data, and we all have a lot of learning over this last year and a half. So what do you see coming in our I'm going to use post-pandemic future for education, for community college? And I'll start with you, Dr. Mourinho, or Dr. Evans. I saw a hand.
Yeah, why don't you let somebody else take it first?
Okay.
Well, what I see is we like to meet students where they are. That includes going into cyberspace. So we'll be meeting students wherever they are, cyberspace, in real space, everywhere. And so I do see that from an IT perspective in particular, we will definitely be pushing out initiatives and continue our initiatives to meet students where they are, no matter where that is.
So that means we're not going to have the same mix of online and in person that we had prior to the pandemic.
I don't think so. I think we're definitely going to see a lot more. Again, it depends. We'll respond to what the student need is. And again, meeting where they are. So if the need is heavily bent towards online, that's where we'll be. If it's in person, that's where we'll be too.
Thank you. All right, who wants to take it next?
I think a lot about this is this poor group of President's Cabinet know, during the summer, I did a project, and it made me do a lot of thinking about the future of higher education. Been reading a lot of books. My latest one, I will tell you, is called Reset. And I'm trying to get it now because I think it really helps us think about, we're going to be working differently. We're going to be serving students differently. I think what Dr. Nevins just noted, we're going to meet students where they are. And what we learned in this, and if you go to the community college research, it's CCRC, and I can't remember what the last C means, counselor. There's a lot of research that's been done in COVID, and what we saw is a group of students that found out they liked online services. They love the counseling they can get online, and they love that they can take classes and work and take care of their kids. And there's those students that need to be in a classroom at a college. And as we work through that, then we will also work through what employment looks like for our faculty, our staff, our leaders. Do we go to a hybrid model? How do we work? So many places in the world now are really saying, let's do this differently. Let's take what we learned and let's be better. And that's what I see for Santa Barbara City College. We're always been a leader, and we are going to show the way on how to do this.
Thank you. Dr. Scott or Dr. Villanueva, you want to share any additional thoughts of what the future might look like for us and the balance?
You know, I agree with I agree with everything Dr. Murillo said, but I think, you know, we were only 16% online before the pandemic. We'll never see that number again, I don't think. But I think I do agree that students are going to want to mix, because if they do some online classes, some in-person classes, they can go to work. I think synchronous classes, which are the Zoom classes, and some people may hate them, but they work for some people. You got young children at home, they may work great. And so looking at them on, you know, going forward, I think instructional technology will continue to be in great demand as we go forward. It will just never be the same. And I think students will use both face-to-face and online, and we have to be prepared to do both.
Yeah, I think it's true. It's what is happening, but right now it feels that we're maybe only about a minute ahead of all of this. It would be great to be, you know, a couple hours ahead so that we can do some proper planning. But I think part of it is with students, community, Santa Barbara City College. I think we need to walk hand in hand to figure out what is best for all of us here together. And so I know that reaching out to community groups, like some of the things that you, Jeff, are doing and getting their feedback, these kinds of forums, I think are really helpful to help guide the college into the next several years, what it might look like, you know.
Well, on behalf of the foundation and your surrounding community of supporters of the college, I just want to thank, well, the four of you certainly for what you've stepped into and up to. We know it's changing, and we know it's not easy. And I know there's a lot of interest in where we go next, and people are watching. And of course, our students, our staff and faculty, our larger community. And I know this is not the last conversation we'll have about this, but I'm really happy that you all were able to join us today and share a bit and introduce yourselves to our those of you that haven't had a chance yet to be out in the world, as we say. So thank you all. And this, as I said, be recorded. We will have it. It is recorded. It has been recorded. You can't go back on that. It will be cleanly edited and put up on the website in just the next few days. Again, I'll thank Jeff May and Raisa Smorrell for all their support in putting this together. And thank you, Dr. Kendra Murillo, our new interim superintendent president, Dr. Kathy Scott, our interim executive vice president, Dr. Dean Nevins, our executive director of IT, and Dr. Anselmo Villanueva, our director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are grateful for your service. And I know that a lot of folks on here will look forward to the first time to actually shake your hand and say hello in person. So thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.